The Five Live Cricket Show.
Welcome to the Five Live Cricket Show. I'm Mark Chapman. We're on for the next hour, and then from 10 o'clock, the Match of the Day Top 10 podcast, which is all about sport's greatest comebacks. Sussex and England's Georgia Elwys will join us a bit later to talk about the Women's World Cup, with England still very much in the hunt for a semi-final place. First, though, we'll reflect on England's draw with the West Indies in the second test for the men. Phil Tufnell and Jimmy Anderson are with us.
Hello,
tough guy. Hello, Philip. How are you?
I'm happy.
You all right?
I'm happy. The sun's shining
Good.
up. The daffs are out. Summer's on its way, mate.
James, how are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thank you, chappers.
Good.
All right,
good.
Jimmy.
Good. It was. It's been tough watching at times, hasn't it? It's one for the purists.
Flat pitches. Oh, that's what I call a flat with flat ones. I reckon you're better off sat there, Jimmy, than being out on them. Listen, it's good to get a few runs under your belt, but I think all the bowlers are about a foot shorter. And old Jack Leach, poor old Jackie, I think he beat one of my records, which was bowled 70 odd overs or something. I mean, crikey, O'Reilly. Some good performances. I was pretty impressed with the debutantes, and there was some good batting. Great to see Ben Stokes back and looking like he's running about enjoying his cricket. Dan Lawrence has impressed. So there are some sort of green shoots for sure in England. But I mean, wow! I think they've got to look at these pitches, and I want to know what Jimmy says about this, because, Test match cricket, we really have got to look after Test match cricket. And if you're playing on pitches like this, it could be the death of it. You've got to have some excitement, not people plodding along at 1 or 2 and over and what have you. It's great to see 5 days, but there needs to be a fairer contest for my mind.
Yeah, I think it's been an issue for a while now, but it depends where you go. And I think in the Caribbean, with them knowing there's going to be a lot of English support, they want to get those 5 days worth of ticket sales. And we've had the issue in quite a few places around the world that we've been. And, it is, as you say, it's great for guys to get runs under the belt. It's not a great place to bowl. Well, it hasn't been for probably 15 years now, I think. I think I look back to 2004 when Steve Harmison got 7 for 12, Matthew Hoggard got a hat-trick. That series, it felt like a real, a true representation of cricket in the Caribbean, with pace in the pitch and things like that. And we've not seen that since, and I'm not sure why that is. But yeah, it's not great to watch. As you say, it's slow going as well. So it's not even as if it's a fast pace, fast scoring. Yeah. It's just pretty turgid.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that they want to get, make the, maximum profit out of 5 days and everything. But for me, that could be a short fix for the actual sort of the greater of the game. I think that they've got to keep. I mean, I've been looking at those pitches in Pakistan as well that Australia have been playing on. Wow.
So, I mean, there are 2 points here, I suppose. One is the financial necessity of certain countries for 5 days. Well, maybe of all countries, actually, to be honest with you, but some maybe more than others. Maybe the other thing, Phil, is not to overreact too much. Andy Zaltzman sent this tweet: 6 tests played so far this month, 4 draws, including 3 with over 400 overs of cricket. The other draw was shortened by rain in Rawalpindi, and in Andy's words, was an even duller game. But there'd only been 3 draws with over 400 overs played in the previous 130 tests worldwide, going back to October 2018. So whilst I take your point on the one hand, maybe we have to also be careful not to overreact.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to go, shouting around at Bidet. I think it's just the contest between bat and ball, isn't it? That's what you're after. You want to give people a chance, because sometimes it's no good for batting either, really. You want a bit of pace on the ball, you want a bit of bounce to play your shots. Sometimes it's hard for batsmen on these kind of pitches to actually sort of expand their game and go through the gears and entertain as well. So it's just not something for the bowlers. I get Zoltz, I get your point about sort of let's not overreact, but I think it definitely needs to be addressed with this sort of glut of T20 and everything. We have to make make it entertaining. And I know that I'm a purist as well, and I like 5 days and the twos and fros and people digging in, and I don't want it seaming around and doing all sorts of things and spinning from day one. But there is a rhythm to Test cricket, and which is if you bowl first, you got a chance, and then you have 2 or 3 days of good batting conditions, and then the last couple of days the spinners come into it. And I think that they've got to keep that in their minds.
Psychologically, for an attack, Jimmy, you see that pitch on the first morning before the game has even got underway.
Win the toss.
Do you feel? Yeah, but
please.
Do you sort of feel your shoulders sag a bit?
No, I don't think he'd sag.
Be honest, Jim. Just be honest.
Well, I'm trying to think back to when I've played in situations like that, and there is potentially a little bit of dread. I think the worst bit is when you bowl that first ball and it just doesn't carry to the keeper. There's nothing behind it. This is going to be a long 5 days. But I think for me, I'd see it as a challenge. As much as you hate it while you're doing it, it's a challenge, and you've got to try and develop your skills to try and be able to take wickets in these places and on all sorts of wickets. And again, going on that point of Andy Zaltzman, I think yes, it's not that common that we get these results, but it is becoming more common in these places. The Caribbean, we're seeing more results like this. Pakistan, I know we've only just got cricket going back there. But even in
it's always been like
the UAE, it is a bit similar to that. So I think, I'd like to see things evened up a little bit in these places.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, these pitches do produce some fantastic inningses, and I go back to Trent Bridge and Jimmy's. What was it? How much did you get at Trent Bridge?
81. Thank you. I didn't know. I certainly didn't know you were going there with that. Didn't know where you were going there. No. Have you brought me into this? But I know I said that 2004 in the Caribbean was good for bowlers, but Lara got 400 in the last test there in Antigua.
Yeah.
So you don't see that much anymore. But I just feel, and when I say evened up, I don't mean seaming and swinging. Like you said, Tuffers, it's got to be a little bit early on. Whether it's swing or a little bit of seam. Good for batting in the middle, and then the spinners come into it days 4 and 5. Yeah. That's what I see as a true Test match.
I mean, last time I went to the West Indies, I took a will out the week before I went. I did. That's how different the pitches have become. It was terrifying. Ian Bishop, Kirtley, Courtney, these guys, and they were flying through. So I don't know quite. There must be some board of pitch people or groundsmen that surely can just sort of. I know weather changes and what have you, but they must be able to just get it a little bit more even.
Just to link you in even more with this conversation, Phil, this may be the best stat I've ever been given in any sport that I have covered. But Craig Brathwaite faced 673 balls in that
That's
test
more balls
match
than I did.
in Barbados.
Yeah,
no, it isn't. It isn't. So 673, right?
Yeah.
Which is only 17 fewer than you faced in your whole career, Phil. You faced 690.
But listen, I tell you something. I bet my 690 were a little bit more entertaining than those 680 he faced in. That's what we've got. That's what we've got to do. We've got to entertain, chappers. We've got to look after Test match cricket. With all this T20 knocking around and everything, we have got to look after it. And the pitches come into that in a big way.
In case you're interested, Jimmy, 3,212 you have faced.
Well done. I never played on pitches like that.
No. But you can take positives out of it, can't you? If you're Saki Mahmood, Jimmy, his match figures were 4 for 79. In the second innings in particular, he maybe gave England a little bit of hope as well. So for all we can criticise the pitch and how difficult it was, if you've come back with 4 for 79 in that test, then that just maybe gives you a bit more belief, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll do wonders for him. That's an amazing return on that pitch where we saw all the other seam bowlers struggle on it, and to perform like that in your first game, I think especially that second innings, like you say, it did give England a little bit of a sniff. But yeah, I feel like he definitely will. His chest will be out after that game, and he'll know that it would have been hard work for him on that pitch this week, and Test cricket will only get easier, I think, as his career develops.
Yeah, and what it does show the guys who are in charge and what have you, it's a tick. It's a tick against his name, because you're not going to play on pitches like that all the time. And if you can hold a line and keep your disciplines and create chances and take wickets on pitches like that, it is a bit, it is a sort of swings and roundabouts. When you get yourself on the one that does do a little bit, well, there you go. You don't have to change anything, do you, Jimmy? When he can draw on that and say, just bowl like I bowled when it was flat on one that's doing something, and you get the same return, and you'll get a better return.
Yeah, you know what though? I'm not surprised he bowled like that, because when I've seen him bowl well for lengths, it's been on the flatter wickets. It's been with the older ball, when the ball's not doing as much. If you have one slight criticism of him, it's probably been his work with the new ball in English conditions. As soon as that ball gets a little bit older, when it gets hard, that's when he comes to the party and starts getting wickets.
Well, why is that then? Because people who out there will be thinking, well, hold on a minute, you've got a new ball in your hand, you're a fast bowler, come on, this is your time. What's that about his action or his line or his length that doesn't quite suit him, do you think?
I think it's a bit of control. With that ball, the Duke ball in particular does move quite a lot early on. So it's getting he's someone who's tried to develop an away swinger. I think he naturally bowls an in swinger. So he can do both, and it's just, he's still young, he's still figuring out in his career what is the best way for him to go. And I think that's just, it's going to take a little bit of time, and it'll come, yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point then. Do you think he is a slightly different bowler than a lot of people perceive him to be?
I'm not sure what do people perceive him to be.
Well, I think
I think a lot of people think him to be this quick bowler who's going to rattle through people. And actually, what you're saying is actually there's a different skill set that Saki has. Whether that's come over the last couple of years or not, I don't know. But I reckon a lot of cricket fans think, oh, here's Saki. He's going to, he's going to touch 90 and he's going to be quick. And maybe we're not saying that.
Well, I feel like he's someone who would bowl consistently 85. He's not a Joffrey. He's not a Mark Wood. He's not a 95 mile an hour bowler. That's not him. I feel like he's going to consistently hit 85 miles an hour and be pretty accurate. We saw it in his one day, the one day internationals that he played. We've seen it for Lancashire, both red and white ball for a number of years, well, for a few years now. And I think that, so he's going to touch that 85 miles an hour more often than not. And his big skill is when it does start reversing, he can pick his pace up a little bit, and he's got an action that really does suit that sort of reverse swing style bowling.
Yeah, and I think also as a seam bowler, Jimmy, it's true that with experience, you've got to know when to save a bit in the tank, haven't you? And you've got to know when to put your foot down a bit, and when it's sort of happening for you and not happening for you, instead of just from ball one steaming in, haven't you? I think that comes with experience in seam bowling at the top level, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that, I'm not saying I'm blessed with the same amount of pace, but in the past I've been, and I think you just try and bowl, without thinking about it, you just try and bowl as fast as you can every ball. Whereas actually, some part of the skill of bowling is, especially on wickets like we've seen in the West Indies, is potentially bowling within yourself for a couple of overs, and the batter getting used to a certain pace, and then all of a sudden you've got this 90 mile an hour ball that just skids through and hits him on the pad. So it's kind of that, trying to develop those little subtleties that he will do, I'm sure, over the next few years.
Have you remembered how much fun it is to talk bowling with Phil? As everything you describe, he bowls every delivery back to you as you're describing it.
Yeah, I'm loving
it. Take us rather, Jimmy, into how this England team works out a declaration. Who feeds what in to whom until they eventually come up with something?
Well, the main two will be the captain and coach. The vice captain will have a good amount of input in that as well. And there might be the odd other senior player, but generally it is just the captain. Well, I'm guessing the captain at the minute would have a big say, but helped along with the coach and vice captain.
Yeah, because he was criticised a little bit there, Joe, wasn't he? He even said it himself that perhaps he was a little bit wary. But I mean, you don't want to go through all of that and then on an absolute belter, then come out and absolutely spank you around for a couple of sessions and lose the Test match. So it's always in the back of your mind. It's very easy when we're all sitting up here deciding about declarations. You know what I mean? Come on, get out there, get at them, and all this kind of stuff.
Well, that was what I was going to say, Phil. Do you think it was really viable that they were going to come out and smack it around? Do you?
Well, but you always have that in the back of your mind. It's as simple as that. You do. You're sitting there in the dressing room, you're going, what you're saying, and some of the boys are going, well, come on, let's do it this way, and some of them are sort of saying, well, hold on a minute, you know what I mean? I didn't bowl very well there, and you know what I mean? And then all this information is sort of like getting filtered back into it, and you just don't want to be on the end of a David Gower at Lords at the West Indies. That is always, all them years back. It just nags away at you. So you always give yourself that extra little bit of time. It's perhaps not the right way to go. Perhaps Test cricket needs that. Perhaps Test cricket needs a couple of really good set-up declarations, and with that kind of freeness to be able to do that and not to it to come back and haunt you. And if it doesn't work your way, you don't get too heavily criticised for it. I think that could be a good idea for Test cricket as well.
Yeah, I think.
Joe?
Yeah, I was thinking back to a game we played against the West Indies at Headingley, and we declared I think it was end of day 4, and they needed three. Yeah, Shai Hope got 100 not out, and they chased them down. Yeah, and I just wonder, as a captain, does that sort of thing stick in your mind? Like you just said about Gower. Does it just? Is it somewhere in the back of your mind, just niggling away? Yeah. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. It's hard to say when I've never been captain, so I've never. I could sit here and say, yeah, just declare and we'll give it a go. If you hear some captains saying we'd rather lose the game or risk losing the game to try and win it. So who knows? I think in the future maybe all this experience building up will just maybe encourage that more positive sort of declaration, maybe. I don't know.
But you are right, Phil. You can guarantee that the majority of us in the media and cricket fans will always go, should have been 15 overs earlier. Virtually every single time, if it ends as a draw.
But as you say, when you've been slogging your backside off in the dirt for 4 days, you don't want to go and give it all away because there's still another Test match to go and you never know what's going to happen and what have you. But I think England will see that as that they've come out on top in that game for sure. I think that they got themselves into a position on a very, very flat pitch that if a few things had gone their way, who knows? So I think that they can take that confidence forward to Grenada. With a few changes, perhaps.
All right, well, we'll come on to that in a minute. England's interim head coach, Paul Collingwood, has been speaking and he's praised the players' mentality. He says that he's interested in having a more permanent role with the team.
Look, I think the efforts and the attitude of the boys, everybody can see the performances they're putting on out in the park. Their attitude is exceptional. In fact, I would say that to back up Antigua like we have this week, and it's pretty draining back-to-back Test matches. But I thought the way that we went about this game and tried to win it right till the end there was exceptional. Going into day 5, there was probably a 5 or 10% chance that we would win that game, and I thought the way the boys went out there this morning just showed and proved how much they were desperate to win the game, and we took a little bit of a risk getting 6 and over this morning in that first session. It was fantastic, and we give ourselves a sniff. It almost feels as though we're kind of 1.5 sessions behind the game. I guess the pace at which Brathwaite batted throughout the match. He was very resilient, but you always kind of chase the game. But we felt as though we had a sniff, and it was good to see the boys trying right to the last ball there tonight.
You'd have witnessed it first-hand, not at the end, I know, but much of the Australia tour. How much picking up has been required, but from there to now?
Look, I think that all the picking up was in the first 2 or 3 days, and once we got the meetings and the scar tissue out the way, then it was all about what we're going to do for the future, and everyone's bought into it. Every single person, whether it be players, whether it be management, have bought into the direction that we want to go into. And the goal for me was always, as interim, was always to pass the team on after this series in a better and stronger place, and in a place where the team's going to be more self-sufficient. And you can see that already, that the guys are, they've got more responsibility, they've got more of a voice, and they're enjoying that. So, some of the performances of Button on the Park are reflecting what they're doing in the dressing room.
And are you enjoying it? Are you going to throw your cap into the ring?
I'm enjoying it. It's tiring, but depends what job is up for offer. We don't know until a managing director comes into place, and then we'll see what jobs are up for offer. But I'm loving being involved. I've always loved working for England, and as long as I make a difference, I'll be happy. But we'll have to wait and see.
Paul Collingwood with Jonathan Agnew. Jimmy, what does he mean by it's about making the players more self-sufficient and they've got more of a voice now?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess,
Is it blue sky thinking?
Well, I'm guessing it's kind of them being more vocal around the dressing room, maybe around meetings. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. Tuffers, any idea?
I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to get everyone feeling that all these new debutants and everything that have come in, and this sort of slightly sort of like revamped, reset, whatever you want to call it, sort of squad that's gone over there. I think he's probably trying to say, right, everyone is involved in this. Everyone has a place in this. We're all captains. We're all out there pulling for each other, and he's just trying to get everyone, going in the same direction and feeling that they've got a lot to contribute. And that if that means that, one of the youngsters has something to say, or someone else has something to say that doesn't usually, pipe up in a team meeting, as Jimmy was saying, or something, it just makes them feel a little bit more part of it, instead of just sort of like turning up there and sort of feeling that they're a little bit under pressure, perhaps, something like that.
But do you not think, though, Phil, I mean, presumably what you're saying is, or what he's saying is, picking them up after what happened in the Ashes. But a 3-test, well, I don't know, you two have played Test cricket, but a 3-test series away in the West Indies without that much attention on it, let's be honest, is very different to a 5-match Ashes series. So yeah. You're not comparing like for like, are you?
No, that's right.
But you're not comparing like for like, are you?
No,
really?
No, but I mean, it had to start somewhere. And as you said, what I mean, you were talking about their Collie being, wanting to do more and everything. I think he's a top man for that role at the moment. He will always try and make a difference. I mean, Jimmy will know more than me. He's a enthusiastic kind of guy, isn't he, Jimmy?
Yeah, it brings a lot of energy. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Works
and
hard.
That's what England need, I think, at the moment, yeah.
But they're all treading water, aren't they, Jimmy, at the moment? Until whatever decision is taken to go in whatever direction. And that's what he's kind of alluded to.
Yeah. And, I think, as he said, until there's a new managing director or whatever that title is, once that position is filled, then I think things will become a lot clearer for everyone involved. So, it's hard to, when he's pushed on that sort of question, do you want a more permanent role? Of course he's going to, absolutely. He's in a great position at the minute that he's been able to be interim head coach of his national side. So he's obviously loving it. But yeah, until that position's filled, then just no one knows really what's going to happen.
Jimmy, with all the coaches that you've played under, do you like a more experienced coach? Do you like someone who's perhaps a little bit fresh and enthusiastic about it, or do you want a bit of an old hand at it? What's the kind of coaches that you sort of like to sort of be around?
Do you know what I like? Yeah, I like the energy side of it. I think Test cricket can be quite. It can be tough, can't it? Especially playing back-to-back Test matches. You need someone to bring energy, I think, and also clarity as well. I want to know what everyone's role is in the team. how we want to go about winning test matches. How are we going to get 400 with a bat? How are we going to take 20 wickets with the ball? You know, those are the sorts of things you need. That I feel like you need a little bit of structure around those things going into test matches. You can't just, you know, in white ball cricket where we've gone, right, there's no ceiling on it. We're just trying to go, and you've got the talented players there to be able to, and the experienced players there to be able to go, right, we're just going to try and get as many as we can. Whereas in Test cricket, I think you need a little bit more structure and direction with that sort of thing.
And does that come with a bit, with an older head, perhaps, or someone who's perhaps been there and done it a little bit?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of everything. Like I think you need. It's not just necessarily the head coach. You know, it's about the people he has around him. It's about the bowling coach and the batting coach. You know, the successful teams I've played in, that structure has worked really well with where the head coach sort of oversees everything, and then the bowling coach gets to deal with the bowlers and gets them into shape and comes up with plans for the opposition in certain conditions. How do we get 20 wickets? And then the batting coach does the same with the batting group. So I think that, you know, for me, that I think that's worked well in the past. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that.
That's what I was going to say to you, James, actually. Do you think that's quite an old, and I mean this in a complimentary way, an old school view of things in a game at the moment, whereas you say in the white ball era, people just go from place to place, but not only players, but coaching staff as well, don't they? Place to place to place to place around all the different franchises. So actually, structures are actually quite hard to put in place when everybody's moving around so much. Yeah,
potentially. Again, I mean, do you mean in terms of the coaching, the coaches that are in place?
Yeah, I mean it's different. It's different, isn't it, in Test cricket, because people are there for well, ideally for the long term. They don't move around franchise to franchise. Their job is that. But as coaches, I suppose, flip between different formats and come in and out of the international setup, and then go off and do some franchise for a bit, and then they might come back to a job in international. Structures are difficult to put in place if you're moving from franchise to franchise.
Yeah, okay. I think, like, again, that's something else maybe that will get discussed. You know, is it a coach, a test specialist, and a white ball coach? You know, that
definitely.
I think that'll be discussed. And again, we had it for a little period of time with Andy Flower and Ashley Giles. Andy Flower doing the test side and Ashley Giles with the white ball side. Didn't quite work, I don't think. But again, there's no reason why it can't if you get the right people in those jobs.
I think
we're going to talk about the Women's World Cup.
Yeah. I think that will come split coaches.
They're separate.
Split coaches. It's got to. It's just too much for the guys to do themselves as one coach, I think, now as well.
We're going to talk the Women's World Cup very shortly. I don't want to go over old ground, James, because you've already done this on Tailenders about not being in the England squad at the moment, so people can listen to the Tailenders side of it. I'm not going to do that. Are you finding it difficult?
Not especially. I guess, yeah. You know, when you sort of hearing, you know, I guess how things are going and not being a part of that, you know, this rebuild and whatever else, I guess is a little bit tough. But generally, I've made peace with the decision weeks ago, and it's completely out of my control. What I can do now is just get myself ready for the county season and try and show people what I can do. I feel in a good place, to be honest, physically and mentally as well. And I'm just looking forward to playing some cricket for Lancashire.
Right. And do you feel you have to prove yourself then? Surely you don't feel you have to prove yourself for Lancashire. I don't mean for but you don't feel like you have to prove yourself to England selectors watching you. Not that there are selectors, but you know what I mean. Watching you playing for Lancashire.
Well, again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the situation is. So, as I said, those sorts of decisions of my England career is it seems out of my hands at the minute. So I've got to control what I can, and that is playing cricket and trying to work hard at my skills. Still working hard in the gym, trying to get my body ready for the summer, and we'll see what happens.
On the Monday Night Club earlier, we were talking about the importance of players being able to rest. being able to actually put, in an international break, park football if they're not selected for the country, go and have 2 or 3 weeks. Have you actually managed to, because we've done so many programs together, know how obsessive you are about bowling and technique and, obviously everything that goes with it. Have you managed to give yourself a break?
Yeah. I've had, I had a week off after the Ashes and then wanted to get straight back into it. But then obviously with the selection decision, I could then take a little bit of time off and do things that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do, go and watch Burnley, go and watch the rugby at Twickenham and things like that. So, not that I'd probably rather have missed the Burnley game, to be honest. But
and also, which game at Twickenham did you go see? Because that might not have been a great one to go to.
Oh, the Wales game.
Ireland one.
No, I went to the Wales
the Wales
game,
one.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's all
did you
right.
go to Cheltenham this year?
I did actually. I made it on Friday. Yeah.
Oh, did you
Did
win
you?
anything?
All right, okay.
Did you get a few winners, Jim?
No. Unfortunately, not.
No.
Missed out on the
I think
Gold
also, Chappers, in order about proving yourself. I don't think it's about proving anything to, as you said, selectors or England and everything. I think it's proving it to yourself. You know what I mean? If Jimmy was going to go back and start bowling for Lancashire, he's going to want to go out there and bowl as well as he can and get wickets. It's as simple as that, mate, isn't it? Really. You're not going to want to go back there and bowl badly.
Yeah, exactly.
James Anderson, Phil Tufnell on 5 Live Cricket, and Sussex and England bowler Georgia Elwish joins us now as well. Georgia will be part of the commentary team in a little while for Australia against South Africa on Sports Extra. The build-up gets underway in 10 minutes time, so Georgia will join after 10 o'clock when we're done here. Match of the Day Top 10 podcast at 10. Colin here at 10:30. And thanks to other results, Georgia, England are very much still in this.
Yeah, they are somehow. I think we all thought they were down and out after the first 3 games, but they've found something within them to come back, and they've grouped together, and by the skin of their teeth, they've got over the line in the last couple of games. So they're still very much alive.
The situation is England now play 2 must-win matches against Pakistan and Bangladesh. If they win, they're likely to go through because they have a superior net run rate over the West Indies. So whilst we're veering towards they should make the semi-finals, Pakistan actually beat the West Indies by 8 wickets, which is obviously given England hope, but at the same time shows that England have to be wary of them.
Yeah, for sure. I think you'd back England playing their best cricket to beat Pakistan, but there have been some strange results in this World Cup and some really close games, and it's not the first game that Pakistan have pushed a nation. It's not the only game that they've done that in, so that was a shock, but a welcome shock for England fans. But by no means are these 2 games going to be easy. You definitely expect England to come out on the right side of them if they play their best cricket, and actually they'll go on a 4-match winning streak then, which gives them a little bit of momentum going into the semi-final and the belief, I suppose. So they'll be happy that it's in their hands given their net run rate, but I think there's so many things and so many matches over the next few days that are going to affect that, and especially affect who they might play in those semi-finals, that they've just got to get their heads down and focus on each game at a time now.
Yeah, Georgia, why do you think? I mean, we're so used to seeing this England women's team in those tight situations get over the line, someone to stand up, them not panic. What do you think the reason for it was? I mean, they lost 2 or 3 really, really close games when you just thought that they were going to get there.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? And we're not used to seeing it. I think it's obviously been a long winter for them, having been in a restrictive environment from just after Christmas, really. That shouldn't be an excuse for the girls, though, really. I think they've just got out of the habit of winning, if I'm totally honest with you. I think it's one of those things that we say that winning's a habit, but it's true, and I think they're probably feeling more pressure than they're letting on, because they are current holders. They know that they're better than the way that they're playing at the moment, and they're probably just feeling that pressure, and collectively need to take a breath going into these 2 games.
I mean, it is all about peaking in World Cups, and if they do manage to get there, they are, you know what I mean? It's perfectly set up. You were talking earlier about the greatest comebacks ever. Chappers. I mean, it could be on the cards.
Well, it could. Do you think part of the forgetting how to win came off the back of the? I mean, I know the Ashes series was slightly ruined by the weather as well at times, but do you think the forgetting how to win started there, or has it gone back earlier?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely did. I mean, you look at that first T20 in the Ashes, and I think England posted close to 180 in that, and you thought, at the half time, you thought, hang on, like England are right in this Ashes series, and then all of a sudden they lost by 9 wickets, and rain affected the games. They should have won the Test match, really, if we're being honest. Ended up coming out luckily with the draw. And then going into the ODI series, they should have won the first ODI. So I think it's been building a while. I think they've just found ways to lose rather than found ways to win. And I mean, you look at Australia. Australia are consistently the best team in the world at the moment. I don't think we can deny that. Their setup, the players that they've got that they can rotate, bring in and out of their squad. And when you come up against a side like that and you're coming out on the wrong side of games, it's tough, and it does take its toll. And then you add into that time away from home, family, partners, and all of that sort of stuff. It makes it so much more difficult. Again, going into a World Cup where they're holders and there's all of that pressure as well. I think the girls just need to breathe. Really, they're not bad cricketers. We know that they can beat any team on the day, and they're worthy world champions at the moment. So, look, they've seemingly turning it around at the moment as we speak, and they're at least I think they're not relying on other games to go their way. It is very much in their hands.
And you can tell also, Chappers, you can tell also when there's a little bit of a lack of confidence and a lack of belief in the fielding. And those first 2 or 3 games, they fielded poorly, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's not England, is it? That's not the England you're used to seeing. You're used to seeing ridiculous catches, run-outs, dives, and it was contagious, wasn't it? And we say that with fielding. One goes down and they all go down. And it was just... It was hard. It was scarcely believable, to be honest, when I was watching it, thinking some of the catches were just dollies, if we're being honest, and they'll say that themselves. They pride themselves on their fielding, and it's just not gone for them. Hopefully now they've come out the other side of that, and we can look forward to 2 strong performances in the next 2 games and that bit of momentum moving forward.
But I suppose, James, if you're in a rut of forgetting how to win, if you're in this rut of dropping catches, you need a spark from somewhere, and whether that's coming through a tight finish that keeps you in the tournament, you're desperately searching for a spark to reinvigorate your campaign, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it could come from anywhere really. It could be Heather Knight's catch the other night. It could be something as small as that. Just then gives everyone else the confidence that, or to just get that extra 10% of whatever it is that has been missing. But it's just not easy. As someone who has never played in 4 World Cups, never qualified for the knockout stage, it is about peaking at the right time. But I think you can. The other night, again, I know it was a little bit of a collapse, but the senior players are stepping up as well. Nat Siver nearly, a great 60 odd. Potentially, if she'd see it through on another day, in an ideal world, but a win's a win. That's the main thing. 2 they've got 2 wins now, another 2, and then it should be okay.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about Charlie Dean as well, the off-fish. She's come in and done really well. As you're talking, Jimmy, it could come from anywhere. Sometimes it can be a youngster who just comes in and goes, right, come on, I can help out here as well. Tell us a little bit about her. Yeah,
no, I absolutely agree with that. They've got no fear, have they? They've got no scars or anything like that. They just come in for the love of the game. She's a brilliant kid. She's I play with her at the Southern Vipers, and she had a fantastic domestic season last year. Took stack loads of wickets, gets good dip, got good flight and good deception on the ball, and she's taken to international cricket like she's played it for years. But she goes in with she just loves cricket, and she goes and she's got no fear. She just bowls what she bowls. She just does what she does. And she's been great for Heather Knight. She gives that control. She can bowl in partnership with Sophie Ecclestone at the other end, which is obviously a big plus for Heather. and she picks up wickets. And I mean, England are probably the only team in world cricket without any left-handers, so she's going to be bowling at a lot of left-handers in the other lineups as well, which is obviously key for England.
I know you would rather be there than talking to us, so this question might be difficult to answer. I don't know, but you talked about Australia's evolution and how good they are at turning over their players. How difficult is it for younger players to break into the old guard of this England women's team?
Yeah, I think it is. I think compared to Australia, I mean, they've had a professional domestic setup for the last 10 years, whereas we're a lot further behind. We've had it for 2. So I think you've seen the likes of Charlie Dean, Sophia Dunkley. I mean, there's names in that squad who are there: Tash Farrant, Lauren Bell, Maddie Villiers, who are coming through and who are putting in the performances at a domestic level. But we just need time for them to, I suppose, get that experience and those performances under their belt. You still see
domestic experience.
I think so. I think the exposure in the competition, such as the 100, was fantastic for Charlie Dean, for Tash Farrant, and then they've been able to make that step up to international cricket. But I think girls coming through now playing at the domestic level just need more of that exposure to be able to put their hand up and say, do you know what? I'm going to take Catherine Brunt. I'm going to take your spot. I mean, she's still there. She's still doing the business, and she's still performing. And I think going into a World Cup, you've got to take your best players and your best experience. Whether there's a transitional period coming, there often is after a World Cup, isn't there? Who knows? But while we're so early on, I think in the domestic structure being professional, it would be quite bold to go and pick a lot of young players going before like an Ashes series and a World Cup.
But bearing in mind that, I mean, I've watched a lot of this Women's World Cup. The atmosphere around the 100 for the women was at times more intense. Like, I'm just looking on atmosphere and experience within grounds. Probably the atmosphere at the 100 felt more intense than it is doing at the World Cup in some games.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I suppose you balance that. Do you balance that with playing for your country might be more intense than playing for Oval Invincibles? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think when I think about the pressure that I feel, for some reason wearing an England shirt feels more pressure. There's obviously something more about it than playing in front of a big crowd at Edgbaston like I did over the summer. You obviously always want to do well every time you step onto the field, but I would say when you have the 3 Lions on, you're always wanting to do more, and especially at a World Cup, I think it's always in the back of your mind thinking, oh, we need to win this game, especially the position that they're in at the moment. And I think that's probably why we're seeing the nervy finishes that we're not used to from those experienced players, just because they know just how much is on the line. And for some of them, it will be their last World Cup for sure.
But I don't think it's necessarily the people in the ground that put that pressure on you.
No.
Like Georgia said, it's the expectation. England are world champions, and they've had a relatively poor winter with losing the Ashes and then losing the first 3 games of the World Cup. So that is going to, you feel that expectation, whether it's from your family and friends, whether it's from your teammates, whether it's from the coaches, whether it's from the fans. You do feel that. So I think that's something that you can't recreate, no matter how much domestic cricket you play. So to see the younger players coming through and settling in as they have done, I think is good, and that can only, I think it shows that there's a good environment as well.
Yeah, and I think also you put pressure on yourself as well. You know, you're putting pressure on yourself to perform, as you say. Not only all these external things that are sort of like, you know, playing in the back of your mind, you're actually feeling it yourself. You know, you want to get the best out of yourself, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. You know, and that's when you've got to have. As I think Heather Knight has gotten back together, hasn't she? You know what I mean? And you can see that they've sat down and had a little chat. You know what I mean? And said, right. Sometimes it's best just to say, right, we've got nothing to lose now. Just go out there and perform. You know, stop thinking you're world champion. Stop putting all this pressure on you. When you see that ball, catch it. When you see that, you know, run out, just do it. Do it as second nature. I think sometimes, because of all the expectation and pressure, you're kind of going through the process of it. So it's a bit like Rory McIlroy sometimes. Just putt like you're putting, you know, around your local course. Go out and enjoy the game a little bit. Well, even I just thought I'd throw the Rory in there. Just thought I'd throw the Rory in there.
I mean, even if I putted like I do around my local course, Phil, I'm still not going to be...
You'd still be taking 8.
Yeah, well, God, at least. Yeah, and another 10 or 12, to be honest with you. But I still, the sort of change of the guard, I do think is really interesting in England women's cricket in particular, George, because you could go back to Charlotte Edwards as well, couldn't you? And actually moving on from that Charlotte Edwards team into the team under Heather Knight took a little doing. And what we're really saying is that that's down to one, strength in depth, and B, being sure that the person you're bringing in has the temperament to deal with international cricket, which is, it's difficult to tell if there isn't that much in between big tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why the domestic competitions are so important for the women's game, getting that exposure. The 100 was brilliant for that. We saw people putting their hands up and saying, pick me. But I think what we don't have as much in the women's game as we do, as you get in the men's game, is international cricket. We just don't have as much of it. This winter we've had an Ashes series which has consisted of 3 T20s, a test match and 3 ODIs. So how do you then blood these players, and how do you know going into a World Cup if they're good enough if you don't have the amount of cricket at international level to see? And we had important series in the summer against India and New Zealand, which counted as points towards the World Cup. So every series that you're playing in is really important, and it would be great if there were more competitions where we could blood these young players, rest some of the senior players, and see what they can do and whether they can hack it at international level, which I'm sure they would be able to.
Do you think that will evidently come, bearing in mind already at this tournament, you know, there is greater strength in depth in the competition, isn't there?
Yeah, there is for sure, and you'd like to think so. I think it's about getting all the cricket boards together and getting as many series as we can together. It's obviously something that we're pushing for strongly across the board, but it just needs for there to be more cricket at a higher standard for these girls to be playing and to be exposed to. And then for them to make the step up, and it wouldn't be such a big one then.
Let's deal with a big positive from the tournament. We've already mentioned her in Sophie Ecclestone, now the number one bowler in both ODI and T20 cricket for the women. She's 6th for the most number of wickets in this World Cup. 8. What makes her so special?
Oh, she's brilliant. I can't say one thing about her that makes her brilliant, but her character, her love of the game. I mean, it helps that she's a tall spinner that's got the most repeatable action that I've ever seen as well, and she doesn't bowl bad balls. She just doesn't do it. And I think now she's built up that reputation that when you're facing, I mean, I hate facing her in domestic cricket because you know you've got to work for every run, and she just doesn't give you anything, and then you try and make something that's not there and it gets you out. So she's an absolute nightmare, but a dream to have for Heather Knight, because you know as soon as you throw her the ball, something will happen in the game. And I think teams now are realising that she is, the key bowler in England's lineup, and they either go after her, which brings wickets, or they take her at 2, 3 and over, which is beneficial for England as well. So she's settled in now. She's been in that side for I'd say 6 or so years now. Well, I first knew her when she was 15, and she's still so young. It's quite frightening, really, what she could achieve.
Yeah, she's got. I was just saying she's got the best action in women's cricket. I reckon. Just comes up there, stands tall, follows through, gives it a bit of a flip, and as Georgia was saying, there doesn't bowl too many bowled balls. Bowls at a good pace as well. Can vary a pace, vary a line. But it's just that good, strong action. That's what it does. It traps you in your crease.
Yeah, and she's not actually got that many variations. You see lots of spinners who've got lots of different variations, but she can vary her pace without changing her action. She's got the arm ball, and she just is relentless at your pads, and it's just annoying.
You get the impression she wants the ball as well. Like a spinner in one-day cricket, it's not necessarily always a lot of fun. But you can see that she wants to win games of cricket for England. She wants to have that responsibility from the captain. And I think she's that sort of character. So that's the reason she's been so successful, and will continue to be for many years.
Is there also, Jimmy, half the battle won when your reputation precedes you?
Yeah, it helps.
You win the psychological battle.
Yeah, absolutely. When for me, if I relate it to myself in white ball cricket, when an opening pair are just trying to get through that initial new ball period, that is an absolute Christmas for me. I know they're either going to get out trying to nudge it, or they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be 10 off 5 overs, which is again perfect. So that did help me, but again, it takes time to build that reputation up. She's worked really hard to get to the place where she is now, and to be number one in both T20 and one-day cricket is phenomenal, really, and but really well deserved, because she's worked hard for it.
Really is. As far as the game you're doing then later, Australia against South Africa, how far ahead of everybody else are Australia for you, Georgia?
Consistency wise, I think they are. I think they've been on a 30-match winning streak, which is quite remarkable. But on any day, England can match up with this Australian side, and that's what they need to believe. It's almost like Australia have now got this reputation, like we were just talking about, that they're world beaters and they're untouchable, but they're not. You've just got to take the game to them, and I think South Africa are playing some good cricket in this tournament, and I'm really excited for the game tonight, because I think if South Africa continue to play this fearless way and put that pressure on Australia, then you see the cracks start to show, and I really believe that they are beatable, but they've just got this reputation that they're invincible, and I think that like we were just speaking about, that is half the battle.
So how? Yeah, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? It's easier said than done to get the cracks to appear. I mean, how do you make, even when Alicia Healy was out the other night for 97, and they needed 7 or 8 off the last over, didn't they, when she was out? You never really doubted that they'd get home. All right, well, I didn't, but maybe that's just my inferiority complex against the Aussies.
Yeah, they're annoying, aren't they? But in that first game,
beautifully put.
in the first game of the World Cup, we, having had such a bad Ashes series and disappointing Ashes series against them, to have to then play them the first game of the World Cup and to come that close, I think shows the character of England, and shows that player to player, England can stand up against them, and it's just about doing the right things for long periods of time. It is much easier said than done, for sure. But there's absolutely no reason that this England side can't come up against Australia and beat them.
Yeah, I've been impressed with South Africa as well. I think that they're playing a little bit of a fiery brand as well. Marizanne Kapp looks to be leading it. She's a top player.
Yeah, she's a fantastic player. She'd get in any side as a batter or a bowler, I would have thought. And a superb fielder as well. And they're, of course, missing their usual captain in Danae van Niekerk. He's got a bad injury before the tournament, but it's almost like they're playing for her in the way that they're playing. And they've played some really good cricket over the last few years. They've just never been able to put complete performances together consistently, but it seems like that's what they're managing to do at the moment. So fingers crossed they can do that against Australia tonight.
And then we'll end up with an Australia-England semi-final.
Yeah, that's not what we want. We've got to beat him at some point.
Yeah,
but that's on the cards, isn't it? That's on the cards.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's so many different results that can happen over the next few days. I think for England, they've just got to focus on the next 2 games. Well, the next game first of all, and then once they get through that, if they do, fingers crossed, then the game after that. And there've been some mad results in this World Cup, so I'm sure it's not the final twist that we'll see. And they've got to play who they've got to play.
The top 4 at the moment: Australia, South Africa, the West Indies, and India. England are there in 5th, but their final 2 games are against the bottom 2 as things stand in the table, which is Bangladesh and Pakistan. Georgia, I know you've got to get on to Sports Extra, so thank you very much. Talk to you later on in the tournament, hopefully, with England still in. Thank you. Just a final one, go back to the men, Phil. You said you'd make changes for the 3rd test. What would you do?
Well, I want to see a leggy play. If you're going to turn up to Grenada, and the pitch is exactly the same, either. I want to see Parkinson. I want to see him over there. I don't want him to go over there. It's the perfect time to just have a little look at him. Let's get the leggy in.
Yeah, you'd have a look at him, Jimmy. Another Lancastrian bowler you know well.
Yeah, why not? Like Phil said, he's there. The conditions would potentially suit him. From what I've seen of him, I've played with him quite a bit in Championship cricket, and from what I've seen of him, he's got the ability to take wickets and to win matches, especially days 4 and 5 when it does start to spin big. He's someone who can be very, very dangerous.
He doesn't want to get into that position, does he, Phil, of being carted round the world all the time as part of an England touring party without featuring.
No, well, that's exactly it. As I said, they've gone over there with this rejigged sort of squad, so to speak, and so let's have a look. Why not? It could be the making of him. I want to see him in tandem with Jack Leach.
Oh, and you finished as you started by doing a little bowling action for me as well, just to do the leggy at the end.
That's the flipper.
Having done the seaming earlier, now you do that.